Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Bill Good. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for Denver Public Schools. This evening, or this afternoon, you'll be hearing from Superintendent Alex Marrero, as well as President Gaitan on behalf of the Board of Education. We are limiting the press conference to 15 minutes. It has been a long day, and the board and the president still have a number of issues they need to attend to this afternoon. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Marrero.
Thank you, Bill, and good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We were engaged in a tremendous amount of great work, part of which you've heard if you were downstairs at the board meeting. I want to start by honoring our heroic staff members who responded, who are recovering, and hopefully both will be home soon. I want to thank the East community. I want to thank Denver Public Schools for the outpour of support. Also want to acknowledge the passing of a student. Yet again, here we are. Looking forward to connecting with the parents of Austin this evening. That's a loss of life. We all, as educators, came into this profession to support, help students thrive, and most importantly, provide them an opportunity to succeed. I can acknowledge that we failed Austin as a district. I want to thank our law enforcement partners, Denver Police, Chief Thomas, Mayor Hancock, and the entire mayor's office for their speedy response, but also their willingness to offer their partnership to support us through this time and beyond. I want to end this portion of the intro by thanking our Board of Education. We spent quite a bit of time, and I was encouraged to hear the proclamation, the memo that I received, but more importantly, the process on how we got to action-based solutions. Is it the fix? We do not know. We know that going back to extremes isn't a solution, but this is the right way forward. So I want to thank our Board of Education for responding the same way that I responded yesterday. Pass it over to Madam President for a few words, then we'll take questions.
Good afternoon to the members of the, would you be so kind, Vice President Anderson? Good afternoon to the members of the press, to my colleagues. I want to give thanks, first of all, for the solidarity in being here and joining Vice President Anderson and I as I share a few words. And I ask your patience to all of you in the media, as I am going to share a few words in Spanish as well. Being that nearly 50% of the student body in Denver Public Schools is a Spanish-speaking student body. And so with that, my name is Xochitl Gaitan, President of the Denver School Board. It's important to acknowledge I am the first naturalized citizen of the Denver School Board, and I'm an indigenous Latina, Mexicana specifically. And I want to share that I want to give my condolences to the student's family. I want to share I have thoughts and prayers for the two deans that were injured in the incident yesterday at East High School. And I also deeply regret everything that the students, the families, and the staff, all of the staff at East High School have endured. I want to acknowledge that there was a sense of urgency and immediacy on behalf of the board regarding this issue around safety, and we wanted to take our time and be thoughtful and thorough in our conversations today and our discussions as we developed these directives to Superintendent Dr. Marrero. I believe that there's been a societal failure. There's been a societal failure here locally in our city government, statewide and nationwide. And for us to incur death of students is not okay. It is not okay, and it really weighs heavily on each of us. And so this was a very emotional day because I know, and I saw it in the faces of my colleagues, that we wanted to make sure that we were thoughtful and careful when giving the directives that we gave in the memo. So let me share just a few words in Spanish, and I'll continue on with my statement. Para darle información a nuestra comunidad del habla español, fue muy importante para nosotros de movernos rápidamente y movernos en una manera muy inmediata para responder sobre este momento que ocurrió. Así que le doy mis condolencias a la familia del estudiante que falleció ayer, al igual darle mi cariño a los estudiantes de la escuela East High School, las familias de los estudiantes y todo el personal que trabaja en esa escuela. Al igual, queremos saber let me speak a little bit louder. Al igual queremos saber, darles saber que como sociedad les hemos fallado a nuestros estudiantes, les hemos fallado localmente, estatal y al nivel nacional. Así que tenemos que hacer más esfuerzo y lo reconocemos, yo y mis colegas, lo reconocemos de que esto es algo que tenemos que en este momento llevar a cabo unos cambios dentro del distrito. And we recognize that in moving and asking the superintendent with these directing him really, that he moves swiftly and urgently. And we support Superintendent Marrero in developing a long-term safety and security plan for the district. That will mean that we have to make time for public safety meetings across the district between now and the end of June. And so that's important to note because we need your help as media and as the press to inform our communities that we will be visiting all communities across the city, and we want to hear from them. Whether you're a student in the district, whether you're a family member, a community leader, an elected official, we want to hear from you to develop this long-term plan. This needs to be, the end result needs to be a very multifaceted approach to deal with this very complex issue. Again, we support Superintendent Marrero in working collaboratively with all of us, including the DPS Board of Education, all of you, staff, students, their families, possibly even other nonprofits and organizations across the city. And we hope that you will all continue to provide, those of you organizations working with DPS, provide those wraparound services to our DPS families as they are in deep need. And we've given a pretty realistic timeline for these community conversations to happen between now and the end of June. So it's very important that we emphasize that. And we look forward to the community feedback and having Superintendent Marrero come back and share with us what the results and the feedback were. Thank you very much.
All right, prior to asking questions, I ask that you please raise your hand. I'll call on you. When I do, please acknowledge which outlet you're with as well as your name. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Morgan Chesky with NBC News. Question for the superintendent. And I just want to thank all of you for giving us a chance to ask questions today. Over the last 24 hours, we've had a chance to learn a little bit more about some of the individuals involved, specifically that 17-year-old student. My question, superintendent, is to what extent was the district aware that before this shooting took place, this student was already facing a firearms charge and had been placed on probation?
Thank you for your question. The district was not aware. Remember, we have over 200 schools, but East was, and they had regular routine with the student. I believe what happened yesterday, although inexplicable and definitely unforeseen, there was a common administrator who would normally engage with the student upon arrival. That administrator was not available, hence the two others, and perhaps that prompted. It's hard to speculate, but that's what we've learned. And in terms of the particulars about the student, East, of course, was aware, as are other schools when it comes to students' history or current plans.
So just so I understand, the district was not aware, but staff at East was aware of the criminal past of the student?
That is correct.
And yet he was still allowed to come to school?
That is correct. There are a lot of students that are struggling, whether it's emotional, academic, or behavioral, and we receive students all throughout the year. We are obligated to provide a free and adequate education for all students. So, of course, our doors will continue to be open for all students.
Even if a student has
That
a
is
prior
correct.
firearms charge?
That is correct, yes.
Julie Sarazari, 9 News. Are administrators supposed to be the ones patting down these students? And if so, will that policy be changing now since we do have armed officers in schools? What's that?
Thank you for that question. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to clarify the procedures. An armed officer, whether it was an SRO or an armed officer that happened to be on site, would have never patted down that student. An officer, in order to search a student, they need to have probable cause. It is practice for an educator to have that leeway under the caretaker exemption. So those of us who've done it, I see several administrators who had worn that hat. we need to have consent of the student or the parent and engage in a search with possibly authority watching and supervising. So it is common practice across the nation under the caretaker exemption law.
Will that change now?
It will not change. That will continue to be our policy.
Finally, with Denver 7 News, Dr. Murray, I'm hoping you could help us answer this question for the dozens of parents who reached out to us. But there was no question that gun violence was prevalent near the school. In September, we had an East High School teenager who was shot in the face. We had a fatal shooting of an East High School teenager right next to the school in February. Parents are asking, why did it take someone to actually be shot at the school for you to reinstate an armed officer at this particular school?
Thank you for your question. It's hard to measure when it is enough to take swift action. What makes this situation very different than the other, it is the third, my fourth visit to Denver Health. But also, it did happen inside of our buildings. So that changes things significantly, hence why I decided to act the way that I did, and I was incredibly reassured and encouraged when I learned that the board was incredibly supportive, but also are going to push me a bit further on how to support our schools moving forward. Yes, we're starting with East, but we have already canvassed, and there is a desire, and we're looking forward to collaborating, and hopefully the mayor will honor what he has offered us, and that will be more than just East, based on the feedback we've received.
And just to be fair, I want to extend this question to Ayante Anderson. Mr. Anderson, you led the way.
Today, we're just going to be having President Gaitan speak on behalf of the Board of Education and Superintendent Marrero on behalf of Denver Public
So
Schools.
I can't ask a question for Mr. Anderson right now?
Not today.
Okay. Was he part of the conversations in the closed session and the meeting throughout the day?
He was.
May I please ask him a question? I've spoken to him about this matter before.
That's not today. We're just going to stick with President Gaitan on behalf of the board and Superintendent Marrero. Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Nico Brambilla with the Denver Gazette. How many other students require a pat-down under the safety plan, at least?
I can't share that information, but what I can say is that that number is very, very fluid and it fluctuates. On any given day, we can have an additional student put on a plan, and also a plan can expire. So, and I'm not at liberty to share the specifics.
Why, it's just a number.
As I mentioned, there's no way for us to pinpoint. Every day it changes, so it fluctuates.
Rob Dawson, KOA, for either Dr. Marrero or Ms. Gaitan. You said this meeting, this closed session was emotional. Why?
I want to share my heartfelt answer to the question in that I myself, as a mother of a 15-year-old in this district, and when I sit in those sessions, in those executive sessions, and we discuss matters of safety, I'm also thinking about my child. And I think about, thank you. And I think about the death of the student that we failed, the death of the student from yesterday, how we could have, as a society, as a city, could have done more. And we, the Denver Public Schools Board of Education, have been asking local city officials and state officials for support. We've been asking this for quite some time. And I also hope, in collaboration with the city officials, that they take efficient steps swiftly to provide that support and collaborate with Superintendent Marrero to meet the needs of the directives that we gave in the memo. So the emotions come because many of us sitting here before you are parents with students in the district. And so we were very thoughtful and very careful because we've been in your seats.
Were you calling on me?
No, in front of you. You'll be next.
Fox 31. Now, according to this new memo that was just passed, armed officers cannot be used for disciplinary issues on campus or in classrooms. What can they be used for? What can they do? And how is this going to keep students safe?
Thank you. I'll respond. So, when I received the language, what I saw there was an opportunity to, one, respond accordingly based on the needs, wants, desires of our community. I've heard them loud and clear. So that's one. That's what this solves. Making sure that we're responsive to the entire DPS experience, making students safe, but also the requests of our adults. Secondly, when we have someone on premises, that's a first responder that's there. So that's the immediate response. So we have theoretically gone from 6 minutes in response, which we've touted when our partners have engaged in some of the swatting, to 0. So that's an immediate impact that we'll see at East and perhaps other schools.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent Katie Weiss with CBS News Colorado down the street. First of all, we obtained some data from Denver Police from 2018 all the way through to now for crimes in Denver high schools that shows that the crimes are really down in comparison of 2022 to 2018, 2019 pre-pandemic years. But they're down so far that many people are very skeptical of that. Did your school system change its policies on how it interacted or reported crimes to police? And if so, has the school system not involved police as much over recent years because of SROs not being in schools in the last couple of years? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I am not skeptical at all in terms of the data. We have looked at it, and I think that's intentional. It's how our campus safety officers engage. Also, it's in response to executive limitations and also honors the ends policy of the board. I also want to acknowledge that there clearly was a dip because of the lack of engagement of in-person instruction during a portion of that time as well.
Well, in 2022, the whole full year when students were back in session, the numbers were significantly lower. Like, for example, at East, 45 crimes at East in 2018 versus only 8. You know, that's a big difference. Is there something different going on there?
That's intentional and by design. That's how we've engaged our Department of Climate and Safety.
And then one other question just for the board as well. What is your response to, community concern about today's decision that you're really flip-flopping on your position with SROs being in schools?
I want to first off share for folks that may not know that as a board, we govern under a model called the Policy Governance Model. And so we develop end statements or a vision. End statements means a vision for the district. We also use executive limitations, which are guardrails for our superintendent. He then takes that information and he gets to determine how he will deliver upon this vision. So I want to share with you that in our end statements, which you'll read in the memo that was delivered to the superintendent today, we made it very clear what our safety vision was from when I first started on the board and to now. We have not flip-flopped. What we are doing is we are including more community engagement because we did have a 1-year-long process back in 2020 where we included community, and we are including them yet once more so that we can hear from them again. So there is no flip-flopping happening. What there is additional community engagement happening with all communities across the district, as Superintendent Marrero is agreeing to do, so that we can come back with a long-term safety plan for all students across the district.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
Make
Any
sure
other?
you call Spanish-speaking media at least once.
Good afternoon. My name is Officer Francisco Alba. So I'd like to implore you, thank you for having the SROs and have that discussion back to the schools. However, I have to ask the question is, with the newly revised discipline matrix, how do you plan on securing safety with legislation and the students of DPS when it involves officers engaging students and they happen to have a weapon, or they want to change the age of chargeable circumstances from 10 to 13? How do you plan on helping to ensure the safety of the people of the community and the staff?
Thank you for your question. And if I can I introduce you to the East community? So this is one of our partners who's going to support East from here until the beginning of the year. So thank you. Aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all right. And being so, you us, DPS, the Board of Education, the community, and also legislation that is being considered now really provides the answers to that. So don't have an answer on how. I know that we have to work towards that. I acknowledge that there are some competing priorities in terms of what we need to do. The fact that you're re-engaging with the community, you can bring that perspective. So in collaboration, I think we can get to an answer. Forgive me that I don't have a direct answer at the moment.
The two deans from the floor who were shot onto the stretchers yesterday morning, or Wednesday morning. It is difficult for even in my mind to understand how is it possible that one kid, one adult is shot in a school? When our hearts and our method is not that to say, oh, we've got a fishing barrel here of kids. It's more of we want to help and provide resources for kids. I think that topic or that conversation needs to happen as to how can we better affect the student in a positive fashion using school resource officers.
I agree
Appreciate
with you.
your comments, sir. We need to take a question from Spanish-speaking media. Who is Spanish-speaking media? Right there, Bill.
Hola, mi nombre es Sheila Alfaro, soy periodista de Univisión. Me gustaría, en este momento estamos en vivo en nuestro noticiero, me gustaría que le dijera a nuestra audiencia en español cuáles son las medidas que se están tomando y por qué creen que le están fallando.
You want to introduce the proclamation and then I'll take it from there?
Hemos introducido lo que estamos llamando en inglés un memorandum, que es una directiva que le estamos dando al superintendente para que él lleve a cabo un plan a largo plazo, donde él tiene que desarrollar este plan y decirnos qué va a ser ese plan para la seguridad de todo el distrito. Le vamos a dar de aquí hasta los últimos de junio para llevar a cabo varias reuniones con la comunidad. Así que esa directiva es muy importante para nosotros para saber qué está pasando ahorita en términos de seguridad. El plan de seguridad que está ahorita es algo temporal y está funcionando porque estamos viendo que van a haber menos y menos jóvenes que han llevado a cabo un crimen. Entonces, el hecho de que los medios o cualquier otra persona esté diciendo que esos números han incrementado no es cierto. Pero lo que queremos es un plan a largo plazo y ese es el directivo que le estamos dando ahorita al superintendente. Would you like to add anything else?
Gracias. Y esa directiva está en línea con el proceso y el plan que el equipo y yo estábamos planificando.
Nos están preguntando, la pregunta que la comunidad latina se está haciendo es si van a establecer policías armados dentro de las escuelas o no, si eso se incluye dentro del plan.
Sí, en East eso está ya hecho
Implementado, son dos.
y en lo demás, la escuela de bachillerato, posiblemente eso depende en la comunidad en cada escuela.
All right, thank you everybody very much for joining us this evening. There will be further opportunities in the near future to address our superintendent. Thank you very much.
Can you help him?